guys didn't do the hospitality suite?
Coffee and bacon kicked in.
Coffee and bacon kicked in already? Came to give you a hard time? Yeah, I know. This table right here, I've told already, they cannot pickle me during the presentation. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Excited to be here this morning. Hopefully you've enjoyed the first half day of the conference already and are looking forward to a great full day of sessions on today and experiences downstairs with the vendors. And hopefully some of you that are in this room are going to win some lovely prizes as part of the NCLGISA experience. So this morning in particular, we're going to talk a little bit about a topic, a leadership topic I think that's very interesting. And the question is this morning is, why should anyone be led by you? So I want you to, as we get into this presentation, start to, first of all, how many leaders are in the room? Everyone's hand should have went up, right? Everyone's hand should have went up. So as you think about yourself as the leader, why should anyone be led by you? What is special about you that people should follow you, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about the majority of the presentation is based off this book here. It's called Appreciative Leadership. It's by Dr. Deanne Whitney, Amanda Bloom, and Kay Rader. I also have some other information that if you want afterwards that I've also used as a Harvard Business Review journal article that I used to sort of build this presentation. Okay? So, while I was chatting, anyone thought why anyone should be led by me? It's because you're special? Because you said so? Right. You know, my kids, right? They ask, why should I do that? Because I said so, right? Any other, do you have that kind of mentality in your organization? Whereas when an edict comes down and you question it, and they say, no, do it because I said so. Have you had those leaders before? I have. And to be truthfully honest with you, there are times when that leadership style is appropriate, right? If you're in the military and there are bombs going off, we don't have an opportunity to have a discussion about why we should move or not move. It's because I have been empowered as the chief officer, and I'm saying let's move, and we need to move. Then there are other times where that leadership style, that approach is not appropriate. So we're going to kind of talk through some of those things this morning. All right, so here it is. Here's the issue why we have so many problems with leadership on today. The first of it, if you see this first picture, we have the gentleman with the hatchet in his back, right? And we all have been a part of organizations where we have people who are trying to climb the ranks, and they will do whatever it takes to get to that point. And those of us who have been under this type of leadership, it creates a very toxic environment, right? You can't trust anyone because you're scared that you're going to get the knife or the hatchet in the back. The same thing if we look at our help desk, you know, what if I told you this wasn't the help desk? What would you do? How many times do people call into our IT environments looking for some sort of help or even to have a conversation, and we as the IT professionals say, no, our network is not set up for that. We don't want to hear any of your whatever you have going on. Our network would be just fine if you were not a part of it. All of these things, right? We have all of these things that are coming from our IT department. So I was some of that line. We never do that in IT. We never do that in IT. So in this particular scenario, we have to find a way to build those relationships with our customer. And then if you think about politics, right? No one trusts the politician. I think we can all be, we're not being politics. We're being recorded too. Okay. So politics is an area where we have distrust in our leadership because we just don't quite believe what they're selling us. And then if you think about how our money markets and everything have tanked, you know, those who are leading those environments, you know, sometimes we just don't believe what they say. You know, why is it that gas prices fluctuate so much? We get the answer that's on TV and we read those things, but do we really believe it? So we're in a place where all of the core infrastructure around us leads us to question if the leadership is appropriate. I can think about when I was even a little kid, little boy, and my mom and them would tell me that you need to do these things. And as a young child growing up, would always question the relevancy of their leadership, right? Mom, you don't know what you're talking about. That day has passed and gone. You know, it's a new day. We're doing things very differently now. So there was just a distrust in the actual thought process of the leader. So here's some leadership myths, okay? Everyone can be a leader. This article says not true. What do you think about that? Do you agree? Absolutely. Not everyone has this, what we call internal authenticity. They're not genuine. So it's really hard for you to follow them as a leader. Now, they may be able to tell you what to do, which is very different than actually leading a group of people. Leaders can deliver business results. Not always, right? Depends on if you have a very group of people around you, they will help you to get those business results, but it may not be a result of the actual leader themselves. People who get to the top are leaders. Those are resounding no. So it's like you know some of those folks, huh?
Sometimes they're just good climbers.
Sometimes they're good climbers. They know how. Yes. Or good hacker. They got the thing in the back and they're chopping someone. Sometimes they're just able to politic their way into positions. Maybe they know someone, right? Many of us have been a part of search processes where we have actually, we interviewed, we had a list of candidates, and there was one that clearly stood out as the best candidate, right? But because we didn't have necessarily the ultimate hiring authority, it was just a suggestion. And then the relationship that was built, i.e. people who are leaders are always at the top, it was the relationship that allowed a person to get into that position. Okay? I can say what you can't say, so I'm going to say it. That happens a lot in our organizations, okay? Leaders are great coaches.
Should be.
They should be, right? They should be. Sometimes, and I'm just saying this is kind of rarely, sometimes the leader does not have, especially in technology, have the technical acumen to necessarily coach followers through their specific job duties, right? You have an awareness, but you don't necessarily have the technical chops to actually coach them through. I can remember this really clear. So I'm coming from the network side of things, and I had the opportunity to work in the school system, and in the school system we had the network side, which I felt very comfortable with, and then we had the application side, which I was clueless about. And it was one time one of a coworker comes in, and she's explaining a process that was going on in the application. So I'm sitting there and I'm supposed to be coaching her through this process. And so every time she would ask a question, I would ask the question back. So you saying that it didn't work? She's like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I said, okay. So she would say something else and I said, oh, so you said that didn't happen either? She said, yeah. I said, okay. I said, so what do you think we should do about this? She's like, well, that's why I came in here for you. And I said, well, I have no idea. We gotta get started. So I really could not coach her through that process because I didn't have the technical chops. So in some cases, leaders are not the greatest coaches when it comes to technical pieces of the job. But where leaders are really good coaches are when they can talk you through processes, when they can talk you through how environments are set up. They should be able to kind of coach you. Let's say, using that same example, if they want to get this application out throughout the organization, then the leader should be able to coach you through the process of getting this implemented within our organization, because they should have that technical expertise, okay? So I guess we need to start with some sort of definition for leadership, okay? It is the ability to influence others to reach a common goal or objective. That is sort of the universal accepted standard for definition of leadership. And the key piece that I've highlighted here is the word influence. Okay? A leader that does not have influence is not a leader. I'm going to say that again. A leader that does not have influence cannot lead. So then that would open up the question, if I have influence, could I be a leader? So what about those who lead up? Do you have someone in your organization that has influence, let's say with your board or your boss, and they figure out ways to go around you to get what they need or kind of lead their department into a different environment? Has everyone experienced what I call the end arounder? Yes, right? So you have a policy in place. You are the leader of that particular group, right? And you're working with the department, and there's someone within that department that has influence because of the relationship that we talked about earlier. They may not be a leader, but they have influence. And so as you're trying to work with this department to get things done, and you seem to have worked out a plan, but it doesn't necessarily fit the plan of this person who has the influence. So what do? Like all good employees, they go talk to your boss, and they say, well, why are we doing this? They don't necessarily, this is kind of really interesting, right? They throw soft darts. It's not, one that you don't even see it coming. And so then you go into the meeting, and then all of a sudden the things that you have talked about, all of a sudden now everything is kind of, well, maybe we should think about doing this. And so is this person actually leading because of their influence? Or are they being, in the case of sabotaging and inhibiting leadership to happen within your organization? Yes. Yes. So the critical piece here is that if you are a leader in that position, to be able to have influence over all is very important. Not just a few, but over all of the group. Okay? And that comes over time. So, as we start to move into what I want to get into today, well, I think we have to bring out how the previous leadership models used to be set up. So they're very individual-centric, right? Many of us look at leaders by what we see, right? If a person comes in, they have a suit on, the nice shoes, and notice I didn't say a dress, I said a suit with the nice shoes, button-up tie, certain look, we would consider them to be the leader. Okay, right? That's how the previous leadership models were set in place. It was all about the individual. It was all about command and control. It's all about how I as a leader can control this environment, right? And then it was also very output and task driven. Had anything to do with setting a strategy, or it was all about, we got to get these number of widgets through this process. Previous leadership models. So now as we look at how we need to change our mindset from this previous leadership model, is because now we have an interdependence because of how we are connected. Pretty much because of some of the stuff that you guys do in this room with technology. We have created this network where now we are talking with people all over the world, right? So our influence needs to span across a much broader sector of people than it used to, right? So we have this global independence. How many decisions do you make as IT inside the IT walls? A grand total of 0, right? Everything that you do now really is not really about IT. It was interesting. I was at a session, I think it was yesterday, I'm not sure if it was Shannon or Bill or somebody. It was interesting, they were talking about IT maintains all these systems, but they probably use 10% of the systems that they actually have. within their department. I think it was Bill. Bill was talking about they had the RF radios, Bill Stice, and he said, I've never, in his umpteen number of years at the town of Cary, actually held one of those radios. So the decisions that we make now in IT are really at global. Even within our own organization, it is outside of the walls that we maintain. We also have this new generation that's coming into our workplace. And I won't make this an intergenerational conversation, but it should be noted that this group that's coming in is always connected. They're very social, and even the way they problem solve is very different than the way we problem solve. They believe in posting their information out on some social media site and getting input and feedback from others who may be going through the same thing. You know, this whole concept of shareware and open source stuff, you know, this stuff really resides in this new generation of worker that's coming up. Okay, so that's something to be aware of. Diversity is the norm. It will be the new normal. The leader that I talked about that came in with the suit and tie is now not necessarily the case. They come in all different flavors, okay? Diversity is the new norm because when we open up a global perspective, we take in all people's concerns and issues, okay? Institutions having to reinvent themselves. Why do you think that's happening?
Different landscape.
Different landscape. Even at the School of Government, we're really trying to redefine how we do business because our client base, they're starting to struggle with how they do business with this newer group, these newer technologies. It's changing how we think about how we can consider success. We used to, you know, we do this, we get this result, success. We do this, we get this result, success. Now, success looks very different. It may not be that you do this, and you do this, and get this. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So we're having to reinvent how we think about how we're doing our business. And lastly, and this kind of goes into this one that I was just talking about, we have to have results that are sustainable. We have to have approaches that are sustainable. Okay, we cannot, one thing with leadership, a lot of times we get involved with the person, the leader. We talk about that leadership-centric piece. What happens if the leader leaves? If you have a talented enough person within your organization, they're going to be recruited by other organizations. They're going to get an offer. If it has to happen, it will happen. They're going to get an offer. Some of you in the room are one of the talented ones I'm talking about. You're going to get an offer. You're going to leave. So what does the organization do when that happens? Are they going to be in a place where they put all their eggs into this one leader's basket? Or have they created a sustainable approach to where they have empowered those around them to be a part of the leadership process? How many of us have been a part of organizations where a leader has left and the organization kind of did this? Integrity. Everybody's requesting. Should be. Should be. And you brought up a really good point. He said everyone should be replaceable. It depends on the culture of the organization, correct? So think about it. If they were always going to this one particular person, we probably have those in our IT departments where they have keys. Basically, they know this particular system. We have custom systems built, or whatever the case is, and then they decide to leave, and then we can never get that system up and going. When we tried to put in, cross-training, but it never worked, and then that person leaves, and then you're kind of stuck. Right? We've really got to, as leaders, we've really got to put in infrastructure around us that we can try to prevent ourselves from that. And if that is the case, then we need to have the ability to reinvent ourselves to go into a different direction. So it's kind of two different pieces to that. Everybody okay? Everybody with me? You like the baby drinking the bottle out there? I thought that was like really cool.
Like the air keeps better.
Yeah. I did draw that myself. So as we get into this, we're going to talk a little bit about this new leadership approach, and it's called the appreciative leadership model. And basically, this is where we create relationships that maximizes the potential to move things forward. Right? It's a very touchy-feely kind of definition. Right? It's really about creating the atmosphere of leadership within your organization and building upon the positives in everyone. Okay? So the four key components of this relationship style is about it being relational. It's a positive kind of experience where you focus on the positives of individuals. It turns potential into positive power. And then it has what we call ripple effects. So not only what we do within our organization or within this confines, but it ripples throughout a lot of aspects of our own individual lives. And once again, this is the book that this definition comes from. All right, so relational. How many IT folks like to be relational? Maybe 10% of the room, okay. Right, it's relational. That means we have to sort of engage with other people. I understand that we chose a profession that deals with machines, and that's primarily our focus is to deal with machines. But now the machines are empowering the individuals, and so now we have to deal with the individuals. This does not necessarily mean we have to go out and make new relationships, but what it really means is that we have to strengthen the relationships that we currently have. So it has to be more than just I'm coming to sit at your machine and work on your computer and then leave. So I'm going to maybe kind of get to know you a little bit more. It's a little more softer side of it. It kind of goes along this whole customer service path, right? It's a little bit more relational. It's interesting that now when you go to deal with relationships, a lot of times we tend to focus on the negative aspects of the person that we can tell you exactly the bad aspects about probably any department head or any person that we have to come in contact with, right? We tend to focus more so on the negative aspect of that relationship versus the positive. So this model talks about focusing on the positive nature of the relationship. What are those things that we know that we can agree on, that we can strengthen, that can help us over these negative hurdles that we might encounter in the relationship? Okay? And it's really interesting that the book had a quote that leaders are because of the people with whom they work and serve. So leaders are really what their relationships yield. Does that make sense? So if I'm a good leader or a great leader, that will suggest that I have great relationships with those who are around me. If I'm maybe not necessarily the best leader, then I probably don't have really good relationships with those who are around me. Some of you are nodding your head, yes. Think about it. Every leader that you would consider bad, how are they viewed within your organization? Bad. And why is that? You cannot be trusted, right? So that creates an adversarial relationship, right, when I can't trust you. Right? So good relationships would probably tend to yield good or great leadership. It's a good research project, by the way. There's also a Zulu quote. Ubuntu, I am because we all are. It's kind of very similar into this whole concept here. All right. So with IT, this is really critical. We have to find a way to yes. We have to find a way to yes. So what I'm suggesting to you is that you don't necessarily have to agree or believe in whatever department they bring in technology to you. You don't necessarily have to say, yes, this is going to work. But we have to be willing to sit down and listen and be positive and try to work on a solution to yes. It may be a combination of what they have brought to you, and it may be a combination of what you're working on, but it's a way of getting to yes. Okay? Because what happens if we say no? They're gonna do it anyway, right? And then what does that do? It breaks trust. It causes all kinds of problems. And then they're gonna go to Best Buy. They're gonna go to Best Buy. They're gonna go to the grandson or the son or the granddaughter or the daughter, and they're gonna get their technical support. They're gonna get those apps that you would give them, and they're gonna bring them into your environment. And then they're gonna talk trash about you. They really didn't do this. I had to get my daughter to do this. I had to get my son to do that, right? So as IT professionals, we have to be able to find a way to get to yes. We have to be all-encompassing. We have to at least listen to what our clientele is talking about. And I know that, you know, it's tough, right? That's a tough kind of thing to, because we have this network, we're trying to be efficient in our business process, but sometimes you just got to slow it down just a tad bit and just listen to what the customer is saying. Appreciative leaders can describe value that they bring to others, right? As IT, we should be able to describe that. They also can describe the best in others and in situations. And when they do this, they set these positive ripples in motion. So let's think about it. If we were to listen to the groups that come into us, it sets the stage for that IT is one of these organizations that you can work with. They're a department that you can work with. So hopefully that will have a ripple effect throughout the organizations where other departments now become easier to work with. Okay? So somebody's got to set the bar or set the culture or change the momentum within the organization. And we have to be that group. Any disagreements with that? This is a slide that I should have hit somebody's butt. Yes?
I don't have disagreements, but I learned at a conference a few years ago that the way to get to yes is to never say no.
Mm-hmm.
Say yes and instead of yes but.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's more or less, yes, we can do that, but if we do that, then we cannot do this.
Yes.
What is your choice in
Yes.
terms of priorities? Of course, that goes better with those above you,
Yes.
depending on how well the end user knows what it is that you're trying to work on and do.
Yes.
And I found that to be unexpectedly more helpful than I thought it was going to be.
Yes. Yes.
For me, it's been about building trust relationships with them so that instead of them already bringing me a solution, they bring me requirements and they feel good about saying, help me find something to do this.
Yes.
That way you don't have to say no ever because you're working as a partnership to get there.
Absolutely. And you get a really good point. It's a great spot to be in when they're bringing you requirements versus a device, right? That's a really good place to be in. Really good place to be in. Okay. So, potential, and I call this the 3Ds of potential. So, one of the things as a leader, you have to be able to see or discover potential in others that are around you, right? And once you discover that potential, you need to go discuss it or have a conversation with the person or the persons that have the potential. And then you put in a plan to where you can develop and implement the potential. Potential is key. A leader should be able to look at their group and put them in the right place to be successful. Which means that my org structure may need to change. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the very traditional IT infrastructure that we really lose out on the potential that we have in some of our employees. Because they have so much more to offer, but the way our structure is set up, we really can't be nimble enough to kind of move people around. And once again, that gets back into reinventing who we may be as a department. Okay? I like this cartoon too. I had fun putting this presentation together. So you know. Okay. Positive momentum does have ripple effects, okay? Appreciative leaders can cause cultural shifts to happen within the organization. Okay, when a ripple comes, it looks like the stronger it gets on the outer edges of the organization. The way this happens is through words, right? But words without actions do not necessarily go. So it happens with words, then finally it happens in their actions, and then lastly it happens in their relationships. That's how you cause positive movement throughout the organization. I can tell you all day long that, yes, I want you to work with me. You know, our department, you know, we listen to, we value you, all these things, and then my actions go directly against what I've just told you. You know, we go back to an earlier slide when I had the politicians up there. They fall into this boat, right? Their words sometimes don't equal up to their actions, and so then that creates bad relationships and bad leadership perception, right? So here our words have to line up with our actions, or our actions need to line up with our words, however you want to put that in. And then that causes a positive relationship, which then has this ripple effect throughout the organization. Okay? So now we get to the question, how do leaders lead? So this gets more into the practical pieces of what I've just been talking about earlier. So in this Harvard Business Review, they really get into more of a very practical approach to leadership and how and why people would want to follow you. They suggest that the first thing you need to do is be able to reveal your weaknesses. Now, how do you guys feel about that? It kind of struck me a little bit interesting when I read that. Reveal your weaknesses.
Depends on who you're with.
Yes, absolutely.
If you have someone who has a hatch behind them and you go reveal your imperfections, they're a hatch.
Absolutely. Did everyone hear that? You know, if you reveal a weakness to someone that has it in for you, oh, trust me, they're going to use that weakness to their advantage at some point in time. So as I was reading this article, I was reading it with more of a critical eye, and I wanted to bring it to bear. What they say is that you should reveal your weaknesses. And I think there is a value in embracing that you're not perfect.
But you don't have to tell all your weaknesses.
But you don't have to necessarily share every weak aspect that you have, because at some point in time, someone may use that who may not be in this same positive affirmation that we have gone through since we've been into this session here. They may want to say, okay, he's positive, I'm going to be negative, and I'm going to be on top of him later. So you have to be careful with how you do this. But I think it is okay, and I think it's actually refreshing to admit that you're not perfect. Because what that does is it creates the opportunity for those who are working with you to make mistakes. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to make a mistake. I think I have one of the best leaders. I might even call her boss. I think the best leaders because she allows me to make mistakes. And if I make a mistake, we'll talk about it. It's not like the mistake is, oh, he made a mistake, we're just going to forget about it. No. There's an opportunity to have a conversation about the mistake, and then what do you do to correct it? But it's not career-threatening. We're under so much pressure to always be perfect, right? Think about the systems that we maintain. Email. If email goes down, is your phone ringing? Do you feel threatened? Right? You're calling somebody, why is email down? Phone's not working, you're going to get the call. So there's a base level of things that, because we're always connected, that we have to make sure and ensure that's up. But what happens if the guy or the girl just clicks the wrong button? Simple, honest mistake. Do we, like back in the Old West, do we bring them in and we have the firing squad lined up and we start, ripping them apart? Or do we, okay, so how can we not do this again? I understand it was a mistake. It's okay. Things happen. We will continue to move forward. But how do we put in, I guess, kind of procedures that kind of help us from doing this again in a positive way? One of the things that the article talks about, that when you do this, it creates authenticity and it creates relatability. So because I say that I'm not perfect, and I am not perfect, by the way, I don't really consider myself to be a great presenter at all. I hate presenting, actually. But
You enjoy putting the presentations together.
I enjoy putting it together, and I enjoy being here at NCLGISA, so that's on camera too. But when you're able to kind of share, not all things, but some things, it creates this opportunity where people will come to you in a way that they probably wouldn't come to you prior to that. Have you had leaders before that you felt like you just could not approach them? And when you did approach them, you were very careful what you said, how you said it, because you felt like you were being judged the entire time that you were in their presence. And if you made a mistake, it could leave a bad impression on what they thought about you. And none of us really want to be in that kind of situation where they have a negative impression. We always want to have the positive piece. So I think it has some merit here, but just be careful if you decide to go back and do this, what weaknesses you reveal. Okay? That's not something I would go, and sometimes, what they do is it's an interview strategy, right? You turn the weaknesses into a strength. I'm a workaholic. You make it positive, right? So sometimes you need to do those kind of things, but just be careful what you decide to reveal. I would not go into the finance director's office and say, yeah, I'm really bad with budgets. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that, okay? I would not do that, okay? All right, so one of the things I think is really important for leaders who are going to lead and how they should lead is that they need to become a censor. One of the ways they become a censor is that they are able to, and I use this terminology for my IT professionals in here, they collect and interpret soft data, which means they're able to come into an environment and they're able to read the people that they are with. And after they're able to read the scenario, then they understand the appropriate actions to take. So they understand how to read the environment. Not only are they able to read the environment, but they're also able to get to the root problem. Oh, this is a pet peeve of mine. We always deal with the symptoms, and we never really deal with the root issue within our organization. Good leadership deals with the root issue. So we have to be able to be leaders that get to the root of the problem and not necessarily treat the symptoms. Okay, I'm going to leave that right there. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand because we are on camera, and some of you are just dealing with symptoms in your organization and you don't want to talk about the root in a public setting. I get it. But I hear you. You're speaking to me and I'm reading the room. I'm collecting the soft data right now. And lastly, when you become a censor, you also empower your followers to do their jobs. You empower them to do their job. You empower them to do their job. You're not micromanaging the process. Okay? And sometimes it's, especially for some of us who climbed the ranks, we started as a technician. We did really good at being a technician. Or we wrote applications. We did really good at writing applications. And because you did these things really well, we're going to make you the IT director or the CIO. And it's real easy that when you've done these things for all this time, that when you become the leader, because that is what you are known for, that was the good thing that you were doing, that it's real easy to go back and micromanage over that when it's not meeting the specifications that when you were there, you want to go back and try to help it stay there. But you have to empower those who you have hired or have been put into place so that they can grow. And watch this. When you do that, when you allow them to grow, you as the leader will begin to grow. Because if you keep going back here to this place, you'll never be able to go forward because you're always looking backward. And so you never get a chance to expand your leadership capabilities because you're still trying to write the application or you're still trying to fix the switch in the server closet. And I know some of the argument is, well, they're not there yet. Get them training. Neither were you at some point in time. So you have to be able to let go so that you can grow. It's almost like a rhyme. It's like, surely I digress again. All right. So even here, delegate balance has to be considered here, even in your censoring, because what happens when you are using your thought process about the room, sometimes you're putting your thought process onto someone else. So I said, this has to be a delicate balance here. I can't look at David and say David is thinking that Carolina is the greatest team of all times, even though he's in this purple shirt to remind me that we got beat by them 71 to some other god-awful score. I can't put my I cannot put my Carolina Tar Heel allegiance on him because I'm in the room with a bunch of Tar Heels. I was going to say yes. So once again, my collection of software data and interpretation is not correct in this room at all. So you see what happens when I try to put what I think is great on someone else, and they're like, no, that's not the case.
Just change the slide.
Change the slide. So you have to be, if you're going to become a censor, you have to be careful how you become a censor, how you're reading the data. Because you don't want to misinterpret someone's thought process, because then you kind of put them in a box. The speaker yesterday was talking about anchoring and framing people in decisions, and that's one of the ways we do that, is that we put what we think into someone else's mindset, and it's not necessarily what they're thinking. Because David likes that horrible team in the East, and he really needs to come to the light of the Carolina Blue. And so does Carla, but we don't leave that alone. Okay, so leaders also need to practice tough empathy. They need to show genuine concern. It's really important that the followers believe that you believe in them. They should know that you trust their thought processes, you trust that. Now, if you don't, you need to tell them that you don't. Okay, don't create an environment where it's a facade where it's not necessarily the case. If you don't, you need to tell them that. And this goes back into something me and Dan were talking about. We got to make sure you got the right people on the bus. And if you don't, you need to tell them that this is their bus stop. Right? That's a whole nother conversation. But you don't want to create a falsehood with those who are around. That's why it's really important to be genuine. They should be able to know exactly where they stand. Right? You as an employee of any institution would like to know exactly where you stand within the institution, right? You don't want to be told that you're doing a great job, and then all of a sudden, they're just not really cut out for this. No one wants to be in that position, right? Right? All right, so you want to be really passionate about the work that you do? How many of you are really passionate about the work that you do? One of the things I really have enjoyed about being a part of NCLGISA is that everyone is so passionate about IT in the state of North Carolina. It's just really very infectious, and I just enjoy being a part of that type of environment. Being passionate about what you do really goes a long ways when you're doing your work. Because when you're passionate about what you do and you're being genuine, Then you're willing to do this last bullet, which is do a little risk taking. You're willing to kind of step out there on the edge a little bit, okay? This last one is kind of lends into this risk taking, dare to be different. Embrace your uniqueness. So each one of us, I think, has the opportunity to be a great leader. And we talked about this earlier, what makes you such a great leader? Well, I think innately, we all have some sort of skill set that we bring to the table. And then being able to discover what that skill set or what that thing that makes you unique is what allows you to be the great leader that you can potentially become. I think one of the really cool things about working with Team CPT is that we all individually bring something unique to our organization. And we're not afraid to reveal our uniqueness and use our uniqueness, and it's embraced by each member of the team. Embrace diversity of ideas. Not only ideas, but people. It's really important today, more so than any other time, as our workforce starts to shift, that we start to embrace diversity. That is going to be an issue, I think, going forward. I know even at the School of Government right now, we're going through diversity study. And one of the things that we have looked at is that we're not diverse enough. We've got to figure out ways to become more diverse. So we're trying to create this ripple effect that hopefully will move its way out to those we serve. Because right now, when you're not diverse, you don't have a diverse set of ideas. You cannot be different because you're not diverse. So in order to be different, you have to have different things around you to embrace that. And then last but not least, that allows us to be trendsetters, right? We're going to have that cool new app that's going to come out. We're going to be trendsetters. We're going to be the one that's going to be the headliner at a conference because we have set a new mark, a new trend within the environment. And then we get to hang upside down like this bird up here. So here's a final thought. You guys have been great. It's 8:30. I know a lot of you were gathered around the Oracle last night, which is the cake that was at the hospitality suite. So, final thought. As long as there's work to do, we will continue to pick apart what true leadership looks like. I don't think we'll ever really get to that point where we really have a solid definition of what true leadership looks like. But what we do know is that really good leadership really yields great results. We understand that not only does it yield great results, but the folks around us are going to be great people. Those things we do know. We do know that two things need to be in place if we're going to have great leadership. One is they need to be authentic, right? Two, they need to be trustworthy. And there's a ton of other ones I could throw in there, but at least starting from those two aspects, we can start to then build the type of culture that will embrace a great leadership environment. And then lastly, we have to be able to trust in who you are, trust in those things that have already been put inside of you, and then continue to develop and move forward. So there's a quote by Gandhi: "You must be the change you wish to see in the world." You must be the change. All right, any questions, comments, thoughts, arrows? Let's see who is this from.
Carolina basketball starting
Empathize with the fact that you're a Target fan.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Was this helpful for anyone?
Yes.
Very good. Well, look, you guys enjoy the rest of the day in the conference. I'll be here with you.